The tipping point. How little things can make a big difference. Malcolm Gladwell. The power of context. Part 1. The Guage case has become a symbol of a particular dark moment in New York City's story. The moment when the city's crime problem reached epidemic proportions. During the 1980s, New York City averaged well over 2,000 murders and 600,000 serious felonies a year. On the ground, on the surveys, conditions could only be described as chaotic. Before Benny Guez boarded the number 2 train that day, he would have waited on a dimly lit platform, surrounded on all sides by dark, damp, giraffe-covered wall. Chances are his train was late, because in 1984 there was a fire somewhere on the New York system every day, and derailment every other week. Pictures of the crime scene taken by police show that the car Guez sat in was filthy, its floor littered with trash and walls and ceiling thick with graffiti. But wasn't unusual, because in 1984 every one of the 6,000 cars in the Transit Authority fleet, with the exception of the Midtown Shuttle, was covered with graffiti, top to bottom, inside and out. In the winter, the cars were cold because few were adequately heated. In the summer, the cars were stiflingly hot because none were air-conditioned. Today, the number 2 train accelerated to over 40 miles an hour as it rumbled toward the Chambers Street Express stop. But it's doubtful Guez train went that fast. In 1984, there were 500 red tape areas on the system. Glacial track damage had made unsafe for train to go more than 50 miles per hour. Pair beating was so commonplace that it was costing the Transit Authority as much as $150 million in lost revenue annually. There were about 50,000 felonies on the system a year, a number that would hit 20,000 a year by the end of the decade. The harassment of riders by panhandlers and petty criminals was so pervasive that ridership of the train had sunk to its lowest level in the history of the subway system. William Bratton, who was later to be a key figure in New York's successful fight against violent crime, writes in his autobiography of riding the New York subways in the 1980s, after living in Boston for years and being stunned at what he saw. After waiting a seemingly endless line to buy a token, I tried to put a coin into transistor, found it had been purposely jammed. Unable to pay the fare to get of the system, we had to enter through a slam gate being held open by a scrappy-looking character with his hand out. Having disabled the transit, he was now demanding the rider gave him their token. Meanwhile, one of his chokers had his mouth on the coin slot, sucking out the jammed coin and leaving his slobber. Most people were too intimidated to take these guys on. Here, take the damned token. What do I care? Other citizens were going over, under, around, and through the street for free. It was like going into the transit version of Dante's Inferno. This was New York City in the 1980s, a city in the grip of one of the worst crime epidemics in its history. But then, suddenly, and without warning, the epidemic tipped. From a high in 1990, the crime rate went into precipitous decline. Murders dropped by 2/3. Felonies were cut in half. Other cities saw their crime drop in the same period. But in no place did the level of violence fall farther or faster. On the survey, by the end of the decade, there were 75% poorer felons than there had been at the decade's start. In 1996, when Guez went to trial second time as the defendant in a civil suit brought by Doyle Cabby, the case was all but ignored by the press, and Guez himself seemed almost anachronism. At the time when New York had become the safest big city in the country, it seemed hard to remember precisely why it was. The Guez had once symbolized. It was simply inconceivable that someone could pull a gun on someone else on the subway and be called a hero for it.